But as I discovered very early on, I was working for, not even sure I want to tell you the name. Anyway, it had hotties in the title. It's one of those ones. And I was sort of in the early days of my Facebook development career, and all of my friends are just like, what the hell are you doing? Because it's the worst of those kind of teen pickup applications, and here I am, a 30-ish man, spamming all my friends. So I learned pretty quickly there are some many good reasons to have some dummy Facebook accounts. Not least of all, you can start testing all of the different permutations without spamming your friends and increasingly your business networks and all of that kind of stuff. Facebook actually have a new system where you can turn an account into a testing account, which will essentially turn off all of the friend notification features. So all of the things will still come directly through to that account, but it just won't kick them on to everyone else. And that once an account's been marked as testing, you can sort of run amok inside there without risking the wrath of Facebook or your friends and family. You're probably going to need, and actually not probably, you're definitely going to need to create 2 versions of your application. So your production app is the application obviously that is running, and you're going to have a sandbox application, and you may need to think about your development and testing environments in a way that's going to facilitate that. Nothing too unusual for a developer these days. Most of us will tend to have that kind of environment set up anyway. But it does mean some extra complexity from the application management side of things, because each app needs its own sort of configuration information, needs to have people added to it. And again, it feeds into the earlier point that testing in general sucks on Facebook and makes things a little bit of a challenge. You need selenium, not the mineral, although you should get the recommended daily allowance of the mineral, as indicated by your general practitioner. But, I mean, the testing tool, and to reinforce that point, if you're not using it already, you really, really need to get selenium happening. What I'm finding a lot in Facebook is the more testing you can do outside of the Facebook environment itself, the more robust your application is going to be, and the easier testing it once you start hooking all the different wires up is going to be. So if you're not already doing unit tests, you need to get unit testing on that level done. If you have unit tests already as part of your development process, you need to start thinking about improving those. And at the end of the day, you need to get this Selenium wonder working. I'll just see, this is the live demonstration portion of the show, which will go wrong. So I'll just go see where it goes wrong, which will be a pleasant surprise. Okay, so I have an application running here. This is a product placement, by the way. Yes. This is my Facebook application creating software that I've been working on. But basically what I want to show you is a quick run through. At the moment it's got some test data in. We clear the test data eventually. Yeah. Why is that? See, the kind of thing we're talking about is automating as much of this as possible. See, this isn't inside Facebook at the moment, but it would be if I was online. What a Selenium basically does is you can, using a little recording tool here that's a plugin for Firefox, you can record all of the actions that a user goes through in the browser, and then you can play them back. It talks at a very low level to the HTML structure of your page. It can do things like spoof mouse movements. It can click on things. Essentially anything that a user can do in the browser, you can script and you can replicate. So now all of the data in my system is gone. And I can click the magic button and it's just running through the application, clicking things, entering text fields. It's also here asserting and checking that certain values appear where they should be. So if you submit a form, then it says, yes, that form was submitted, so some basic sanity checks. And what this means now is you're hooked up to do things in a much more automated way. Selenium will work with the Facebook application itself, so you can be stripping data out of your application and running it again through the entire Facebook tree structure of adding the application, logging in, checking that certain values and certain things are coming through. If something gets messed up, you go back, start again, clean the data out, run through all of the different steps. That alone is going to save you a lot of time. If you're not already using it in your development process, you really need to be doing it. The newer versions do some wild stuff like drag and drop and all sorts of things. So it's a really powerful tool. Profile updates. The next hardest bit after you've actually developed the application so far that I've found is updating user profiles. Part of the problem with updating the profiles is you essentially need to have a process in the back end that is going to push data and refresh data into the profile. User profiles, Facebook doesn't pull. You have to push using the API. So there's a couple of ways of handling this. It's the hard bit. From a systems point of view, this is where it starts to get messy because it's sort of outside sort of normal web development, if you will. You can use a thing called handles. There's a ability inside Facebook to actually pass a URL to the Facebook backend and say, this is user profile content, and can you make sure that the user profiles are updated with that content? And what Facebook will actually do is cache that information. It will update it when you need to and do some things like that. So for content that is static across many different profiles, have a look at using these handles. That stuff is all inside the wiki. There's probably not much point talking you through it. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of wiki reference information and some forum posts that are linked from the wiki on exactly how to set up handles and references inside the Facebook backend. The second part of the profile system, if the user goes into the backend of your application, you can trigger an update for that user and push the content in. But the continuing problem with lots of apps is users aren't necessarily going inside the application itself. They're checking on the profile, and if things aren't updated on the profile page, there's no necessary incentive for them to go into your app at all. So you're kind of in a catch-22. So what I've been doing is asynchronous updates, where there's a process running permanently on the server that is basically going through and pushing new content periodically to every user in the system. And so this gets hard because the more users you have, the more load that's going to create on your server and all of those kind of things. So we don't generally have this problem in any of the other applications I've worked with, of having a secondary process to the web server process to push more and more content in. Hopefully there'll be, Facebook will come up with a magic answer for this one soon. The references stuff is their first attempt, and it's fairly recent and it's working pretty well.